Just wanted to offer a few reflections on the picture of God we get in the Old Testament. This is because last Sunday I was preaching about how many of us grow up with this idea of God as an angry God who needs to be placated, kept sweet, kept off our backs. He feels distant, like a school teacher. And I got some feedback from one of our home groups that people were very perplexed by the picture of God we get in the Old Testament sometimes. And as I said on Sunday, the thing that will make all the difference to us is the image and the picture of God we have. If we have a picture of God as that kind of aggressive, vindictive, hateful God, then it's going to shape the whole of our lives and our relationship with Him. And so many people are held back by that bad picture, that bad religion. But if our picture of God is of God's grace and love, like we said, his love being like the Niagara Falls, which we try and contain within a teacup, it makes all the difference. So here are a few thoughts which don't answer everything, but which go some of the way to help me understand how to read the Old Testament. Firstly, we've got to understand that the Bible is a book of progressive revelation, which means that as we go along through the story of the Bible, we understand more and more in greater complexity the depth of God's character and love. So what you read at the beginning needs to be read in the light of the whole story. And of course, as Christians, everything that we say about God has to be interpreted through the lens of Jesus. So if the way you're understanding something you read in the Bible doesn't fit in with Jesus, then it doesn't make sense. Hebrews 1 tells us that in the past, God spoke to us through prophets and other means. But now he has spoken to us through his Son, who is the exact representation of his being. So however you interpret the Old Testament, you need to interpret it through Jesus. Jesus said to his disciples, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." However we understand God has to be understood through how we see Jesus. So it's a progressive revelation which leads us to Jesus. But I think also in the Old Testament we can see two things. Firstly, we can see that God is always ahead of his people, trying to develop them in love and justice. So, for example, take the commandment, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That is not a God saying, if someone hits you, hit them back. It's God saying, no, restrict your vengeance. Because at that time, in that culture, when people were hurt, they would not take an eye for an eye. They would take a family for an eye. They would burn crops. They would slaughter people just for having insulted them. So God was restricting the vengeance. But secondly, throughout the Old Testament, think of the covenant of love, where God again and again, as we read in Hosea, calls out to his people with love, calls them into a relationship like a husband and a wife, pledges himself to them. And if you read the Old Testament carefully, I believe the dominant picture of God that we get is what we see in Jesus, that here is a father who again and again commits himself to his people in love. And so read the Bible with that through the lens of Jesus, with that idea of covenant. You know, I'm encouraged actually that these things haven't been censored out of the Bible, because the Bible is about real people in real places in real history. It's not a rule book. It's a story of God dealing. That's not the Lord. Of God dealing with real people in real times, and as you read it, you know that these people are just like us, and that for me gives it the ring of truth. I want to encourage you that God is a God who forgives his enemies, who pours out his life for us. The Bible says, a bruised reed he will not break, a smouldering wick he won't put out. God, because of his great love, who is rich in mercy, saved us by his grace. It's nothing to do with us. So let's read the Old Testament through the lens of Jesus and with maturity, and let's not let our picture of God be formed by a partial understanding of the story of our redemption, of grace and of this love which surpasses understanding. Thanks for listening.